you continue to grow the business. So what does that mean in the agency space? We need to control our biggest cost, which is time. You have to control your time.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the High Level Spotlight Sessions, where we showcase awesome marketers doing awesome marketing. Today, I'm joined by Chris Martinez. He is the founder and CEO of Dude Agency, a nearshore support partner for design, dev, and other agency needs. Dude has performed, and I pulled this off your website, so I'm sure it's more by now, over 30,000 tasks for agencies worldwide.
Yep, more like 50,000, I think now, but
I figured.
It's
Chris,
a lot.
thanks so much for coming on.
We stopped counting. It's like the McDonald's thing where they say like 50 billion hamburgers, sir. Like, why are you even counting anymore?
Exactly. Chris, the first thing I got to ask you is, where'd the name come from? Dude, it's like the funnest agency name I've ever heard.
Yeah, I love telling this story. I haven't told it in a while either. So basically I had an agency back in, this is 2017. And we had hundreds of clients, and I was just not really feeling fulfilled. So a friend of mine has a beach house down here in Rosarito. And so I was hanging out at his beach house, just me and my dog. And I was thinking about what I could do. And I heard this podcast of Design Pickle. So, Russ Perry started.
Just had them on the show.
Oh, really? Cool. Yeah. So I heard Russ on the show on some podcast, and I was like, man, I could totally do something like this, but I'll do development and I'll use my team in Mexico, because nobody even thinks to use team members in Mexico. And I already had a little team in Tijuana. Mm-hmm. And so I came up with the idea, and then I was like, well, what am I going to call this thing? And I had read this book like 10 years earlier called Selling the Invisible. And the only thing that I remember about that book is the guy said that Americans love companies with the ooh sound, like YouTube, Uber, Yahoo, Google. And so I'd always wanted to build a business and have the name be that. So I'm like, well, what can I call it? And I'm from Southern California, so we say dude like every other word. I was like, I can call it dude. And then I was like, well, it has to stand for something. So I was like, it could stand for digital updates done by experts.
There you go. I had no idea it was
that's where it came from. And then, of course, like we never ever say digital updates done by experts. It just came with dude. That was it.
The problem with acronyms is usually grow beyond them, but that's pretty good. That's pretty digital updates. I mean, that's pretty all encompassing. I like that.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's pretty accurate compared. When you look at what we do. But actually, when we completely just started going by dude is the first trafficking convention or trafficking conversion conference, which I'm going to see you at next week. We had a booth and I had a dude hat. So I just at last minute, I was like, I'm going to put up one dude hat. And so it said dude. And then everywhere that I wore that hat, people were like, dude. I was like, that's it. We're just going with dude. Like no more digital updates.
That's so funny. I had no idea about the psychology of the ooh sound, but it makes sense.
He could have made the whole thing up. He could have made the whole thing up.
I think it rings true.
It could be true. I mean, there are a lot of companies that we love with the ooh sound, but it could be coincidence. Who knows?
Well, so we're supposed to talk about leadership today, and I want to get to that. But first, I do want to cover digital updates. You guys do more than dev, right? You're more than dev support. Can you talk about that a little bit? Like, what do you guys do for agencies?
Yeah. So, like agencies struggle with operations. Most agencies are great at selling, and they're really, really good, and they love creating the strategy for their clients. Typically agencies will get to a point where the bottleneck is the team. Right? They can't find the team to get the work done, and they can't find the team. They can't find the right team, and they also can't find the team at the budget that they can afford to invest. And that's where, my agency was able to grow because I, took the leap of faith and went across the border down into Tijuana, Mexico, of all places, to try and build a team. I still don't really speak Spanish that well. I did not know anything about building a business in Mexico and the culture and all that stuff. I just had a hunch. And, because I was living in San Diego, and I was like, I bet you I can find people down there. So I went across the border, built a team. And then I found that team, and it was amazing. And that's what helped us to grow. And so basically we started Dude because I was like, so tired of telling people like, hey, try and build a team in Mexico. And they're like, I can't do it. So created, Dude to fill that void where we can help people help agencies with the team that they need to take on more projects and scale profitably. So that was kind of like the origin of it. And so my agency, we always did websites and we always did ongoing support. A lot of people call them care plans. So we started out doing that with Dude, and basically took a lot of our best practices and processes from my agency and transferred it over to Dude. As the agency started to come and work with us, they're like, hey, can you do this? And we're like, sure, we can do that. We started building out processes for doing that. Mm-hmm. So really now there's like 4 main buckets for what we do. So the first one, websites, building tons of websites, WordPress, Webflow, and now high level. Very excited to announce that. And then the second one was landing pages and funnels. So the second bucket of things we do, landing pages and funnels. And then the third one is design work. So digital design work. And then the fourth is updates and changes. So typically when an agency brings on a client, it's, they get them on a retainer and they are running campaigns for them. So randomly things will come up, or, they have the care plans and they need somebody to do that for them, or like even like a site speed optimization, like we do all those things. Mm-hmm. So those are the 4 main buckets: websites, landing pages and funnels, design work, and updates and changes. And those are the 4 basic things that we do. And within those, there's like hundreds of little things, but that's the
main. No, I mean, thinking back to the days of running operations at an agency, especially like you mentioned when you're young, you keep hitting that problem where it's like, we need someone to do this, but it's not enough work for a full-time person, and we couldn't afford a full-time person yet anyway. So it's like, we're going to go to like Upwork or like Fiverr and try to find somebody that can knock out some tasks. You know what I mean? So,
right.
And it's always varied, right? It's like, oh, they want to update their COVID policy. Like, okay, well, what does that mean? Well, we need a graphic for it, and then somebody needs to like get it into WordPress somehow.
Or here's the other thing is like, you got an amazing, software engineer on staff or programmer on staff, and you're paying them $120,000 an hour. Do you really want that individual going in and updating that little widget, or, like updating one blog post? Like, is that really the best use of their time?
Yeah.
And so then you have to go back and find that, random person, and hopefully they do it right. And one of the biggest frustrations with working with overseas teams that I experience, and that so many, I would say all of our clients have experienced, is the time change, right?
I was just going to say, such a huge advantage to have a team in the US time that can work on changes like these.
And we only work with agencies in the US and Canada because we can't provide the same level of experience because of the time zone if they're outside mm-hmm. of our continent. So, like when I started my agency, I started from nothing, like less than nothing. I was still broke from my first failed business, paying off debt from that. And so I didn't have any money, and I partnered with a guy who had a team in the Philippines. And so for the first 2 years, I would stay up. My schedule was 6 a.m. to 1 a.m. every single day for 2 years. That's what I had to do, to survive. It was not fun at all. Like, who wants to work that schedule? Mm-hmm. And honestly, you can't work that schedule for, I don't even think you can work it for 2 years, but definitely not long.
Or turn it into a zombie.
Exactly. And so that's when I found Mexico, and I tried everywhere else on the planet. It just made things so much more easy because we can talk during normal business hours, and like we've all had things break in the middle of the day, and like I couldn't go to my clients again and be like, oh, can you just wait until my guys wake up? Like, it's not an acceptable answer.
Yeah.
And that totally becomes one of the reasons why you can't grow more, is because you can't provide a good service during normal business hours. So I tell everybody, like, we always tend to look left to right when we're looking for outsourcing partners or overseas teams. Why don't we look up and down?
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't make any sense. So that's what we provide now, is, that team down in Mexico, as well as
I love South America. I'm in Puerto Vallarta. We've talked about this a ton, and I'm actually curious to know about how hard it was to build a team in Tijuana. I know a bunch of great teams in Guadalajara. Mm-hmm. Guadalajara is like the tech capital of Mexico, so it's it's not hard to find talent there. Tijuana is not a place that you think of being like a tech hub. Was it hard to build it? Did you have to convince people to move there, or did you find people there?
So The hardest thing I think of any organization in general is not finding technical ability. It's finding the soft skills, people who are willing to do whatever it takes to serve the clients, people who are great at working in a team and are passionate about helping their team members, people who are willing to put, like service above self, like those types of values are very, very hard to find across the globe. Sure. In Tijuana specifically, and for the most part in Mexico, especially when we were starting in 2015 down here, the hardest part was finding people who knew WordPress, because that was our bread and butter, was WordPress. And so nobody knew WordPress, and they have technical schools here. Like we have 4 guys on our team right now who have master's degrees in computer science, didn't know anything about WordPress at all, like barely even knew what it was. They learn it very, very quickly. But originally when we went down here, we're like, oh my God, it's so hard to find people. Like nobody knows WordPress. How is this possible? Like there's tens of thousands of people in the Philippines and everybody knows WordPress, right? How do we not know this in Mexico? Once we got over that and we realized, hey, we just got to teach them, and it takes them less than 2 weeks to learn it. And then we overcame that hurdle. So in terms of like finding staff, like it was hard to find people back then that had the kind of like the platform knowledge. And even with design work, because we do the design work too, everybody had print experience. Very, very few people had design experience for digital, so like website mockups, banner ads, like not a lot of people had experience. Did they figure it out? Yeah, absolutely. It took them like less than a week. But originally, like if you go into it saying, hey, these are the bare minimum of skills, you're not going to find anybody. Yeah. Or you find people that are just, so high priced, like way overpriced, and they kind of like are taking advantage of you, that you end up not getting a good team member. So this is
why I love the model, because it's so hard to build a team generally anywhere, right? Mm-hmm. So if you want to like capitalize on the nearshore financial advantages, like I think it's people are like, oh, that sounds great, like let's build a team in Mexico, but to actually go and do it would be a monumental challenge. So the fact that you've already done it, I mean, I think is a huge opportunity for people. Now you mentioned WordPress Webflow, which has come on strong over the past couple of years. High level, of course, now, which is super exciting. But I also want to talk to you about Shopify. I saw a Shopify logo on there.
Yep. We do Shopify too.
I feel like the barrier to entry on Shopify is much, much higher than WordPress. Like, I feel like it's very easy to get in there and create products and stuff. But if you wanted to build landing pages and such, it's pretty tough. At least the last time I tried to do it, which is why I'm super pumped that we're working on a Shopify integration, because I think if you're going to be able to publish funnels into Shopify like you can on WordPress, that's going to be really exciting. But how's it been working with Shopify?
It's good. I mean, Shopify, like you mentioned, it's its own beast. They have their own language, and there's so many things that you can do. There is also a global shortage of Shopify developers because we had this thing called COVID that happened last year. And guess what? Everybody's like, oh crap, I got to get my stuff online. So we've been very fortunate where we've found amazing team members who are very, very talented with Shopify. And then we also have our own internal training programs so that we're training our staff on how to know how to build on Shopify. We don't get a ton of agencies that are on Shopify working with us. So the demand hasn't exceeded our supply of developers just yet. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely a good platform that we like, and we love our clients who are on it, and we hopefully will continue to grow and get better at it too.
I'm so excited for it. I really think once Shopify once we roll out our Shopify integration, like being able to do everything you can do on high level seamlessly with Shopify is going to be a game changer. So I'm super pumped on that. And it's great that you guys are already there to support folks who are going to need help with it. Because I don't think most agencies typically work with Shopify, but I think you just nailed it on the head. Everyone's kind of scrambling to figure it out. Like, oh, shoot, my clients all want to start selling stuff. We need to figure this out pretty quickly. Yeah, so it's nice to have support.
There's like another component of it that we help our agencies out with is on the process side of it. So I tell people like, hey, if you've never done a Shopify project before, don't just go and sign up, $100,000 SKU like website that you're going to build for them. Like it's going to be really, really difficult for you to be able to get that done. because in this business, selling is actually not that hard. Like selling is the easy part. Getting these projects done and keeping the clients happy and having them, become clients for life, that is the secret sauce, right? And so that's where we come in and we provide kind of coaching, mentoring on the process side. And we have all these things that we do for our agencies so that they're not only able to bring on the projects, but that they can get them done and get them done for the right margin, right? So we want every single client of ours to be making solid profit, right? And net profit, like net income, not just gross profit. And unfortunately, like that part of the business is not talked about enough. So people think that, hey, I have a 5% net income and my clients are staying for like 4 months at a time. I would say far too many people think that that's okay. That's not okay. Like you should have at least 20% net income. Your gross margin should be as close to 70% or if not more than possible. And you guys should be keeping your clients for a very, very long time. Anything less than 12 months is completely unacceptable in my book. And there's steps that you can take to ensure that you get there. And so we help our agencies out with that as well.
Well, let's talk about that. I'm assuming that's a piece of what I saw on the site that's called Dude School.
That's part of it. Yeah. So we run a mastermind group for our agencies. We actually have 3 levels. So level 1 just like covers the basics. So in the level 1, we talk about, how to be a better CEO. We talk about the financials and just like the basics of how to run your financials. We talk about customer retention and building out your customer journey. We talk about, what else? I'm trying to think. A little bit on sales and marketing, not a whole lot on sales and marketing. And then just like how to map out your year so that you can hit your goals, both personally and professionally. So that's a level 1. Level 2 is basically that on steroids. Plus we bring in some speakers. And then level 3 is like even more advanced. And then the Dude School is our membership site that all of our clients get access to. And everybody actually gets access to it for now for free. We are going to start charging for that soon, but that's everything on how to run an agency except for sales and marketing. It's like the least, like all the non-sexy stuff that I love and that I preach is like the non-sexy stuff is what makes the difference between you being super successful and profitable and not. There's just no way around it. Like everybody loves like traffic and conversion, for example, because we're talking about fun, exciting, like driving traffic and making conversions and getting new customers. Like that stuff's exciting. It's absolutely necessary, but it is not what determines you winning a championship and you like struggling every single month. The non-sexy stuff makes the difference. So Dude School, basically we teach all that non-sexy stuff in there as well.
And do you feel like I saw the word integrator on your site, which made me think of that book, Rocket Fuel, which I have on the shelf back there, which I talked to, I can't remember, somebody about recently. And I feel like you must be an integrator or have been in a previous role or something, because I feel like integrators are process-based. And I feel like a great integrator could feel comfortable teaching other people non-sexy stuff, right?
Yeah. See, this is where like my personality profile gets a little weird. Because like when I do the Myers-Briggs, for example, I'm like every single time extreme ENTJ, like CEO visionary type of person. But I think I'm pretty naturally good at process, which is kind of anti the CEO model visionary, right? So like if you look at that book, Traction and Rocket Fuel by I think his name's Gino Wickman. The integrator is the one who takes the CEO's crazy dreams and then makes them come to reality. I don't have a COO or an integrator right now. So I've always kind of been my own COO and integrator. I would love to have one day. But I feel like I kind of have a lot of those traits, which I'm not supposed to, according to the books. I'm kind of like that unicorn in some way that I can do that, but I really, really enjoy the CEO visionary type stuff. Maybe one day I'll be a COO and I won't be a CEO anymore. Who knows?
Do you feel like with the clients that you have, the agencies you've worked with, do you run into more of them that are being led by a CEO without an integrator? or more of an integrator without a CEO?
100% CEO without an integrator, and they absolutely need one. Like most agency owners kind of stumble into running an agency. Nobody ever sets out and like, I'm going to run a marketing agency. Maybe now they do, but back in the day, nobody ever was like, I'm going to start. It's you get really good at doing something and you start doing it like freelance, for example. And then that turns into a referral, which turns into another referral. And you're like, wow, I got too much work that I can handle. I need to find somebody. And then you slowly start to piecemeal together a team. And then before you know it, you've got all these clients and you've got this team and you're like, wow, how did I get here? I have no idea what the heck I'm doing. And that's where the revenue, like the top line revenue looks good. The money's coming in, but you don't actually have a good understanding of the finances and you're not really a very healthy business. And that's the stage kind of like when agencies come to us, they're like, you know what, like I see the potential of this being a multi-million-dollar business, but I'm kind of at my capacity as a leader. And so I need you guys to come in and help me. Obviously, that's where we say people, process, education. That's where we help them get to that next level.
I mean, it's super important. And I would imagine that you have conversations about, not just here's the process for how to do that thing, but here's the reality of that thing. I think a lot of CEOs, they know one thing really well, like you said, but it's like, oh, I want to sell websites now. I talk about websites all the time. People want to buy them. Like I could sell them so easily. And you're like, cool, but you're selling them for this amount, or you want to sell them for this amount. And that's not reality. Like we'll give you the process on how to build websites, but let's talk about the reality of it first, especially like we were talking with e-com, which is a whole different beast of its own. And I've been in that pain of just like, what? Our CEO sold what? All right, well, we're going to go build this e-com site, guys, like strap in. This should be interesting. And it just, turns into this massive nightmare. And you're like, holy smokes.
Right.
So do you feel like that's the case? You have to kind of like have talks about not just process, but like the reality of the product?
Totally. And I think I'm going to talk about this next week at TNC. One of the revelations that agency owners, well, everybody in the agency needs to understand is what is our biggest expense, right? As an agency, our biggest expense is typically time. It's labor. So I'm going to use a restaurant analogy. I don't know if you ever worked in a restaurant when you were a kid.
Oh yeah. When I was like 14, my uncle used to make me grind up all the shells and guts for lobster bisque.
Awesome.
Every Saturday morning.
So I worked in several restaurants, never that gruesome. But I worked at Chuck E. Cheese when I was in high school. It was my very first W-2 job. So I worked at the cash register, and like, it was amazing how much money was going through that place on a weekend. So like below, there was like 5 registers all next to each other. Below my register, there was a little bit bigger than a shoe box, but it was a wooden box and it had a little hole, a slot in it. So anytime you would have hundreds, or if your register would get too full of 20s, you would drop those in there. And this is before people were using credit cards all the time. So most people were paying with cash. On a weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, the manager would have to come and empty out that box filled with like you could not fit more $100 bills in there because it was so full. At least 3 times an hour. That's how much. 5 of us next to each other, they're coming in, emptying that thing out, like literally printing cash. And so what was amazing is not necessarily that they were generating so much cash. It's that they were so unbelievably profitable. So what would happen is when I would type in the order, and one of the most popular things was like a large Supreme pizza, like 4 sodas, breadsticks, and tokens, like $20 of tokens, which is literally nothing. And it was like $40, right? So the biggest expense there was the pizza. So essentially they're selling a large Supreme pizza for $30 in 1997, 98. Okay. So the order goes back to the kitchen. The cooks get the order, and then they have a chart in front of them and they have to weigh the ingredients. So a large Supreme gets this much weight of pepperonis and olives and mushrooms. Did it take longer? Absolutely, it took longer. So there was higher expense to be able to make the pizza for the labor side. But their biggest expense for the pizzas wasn't necessarily the labor, it was the food costs, right? So Chuck E. Cheese knew that we need to control our food costs because food is perishable. So if you don't use it, or if you don't estimate how much you're going to need, then it goes bad and you can never recoup that cost. So Chuck E. Cheese knew that every time a pizza went out and they sold that pizza for $30, they were going to make that pizza for like $5. Now, what did that mean for the management? They recruited, like the general manager for that store went to law school, didn't want to practice law. They recruited him. They said the recruiting process was insane. He was making like 80 grand a year managing a pizzeria in 1998. All the managers were making like really good money for, essentially managing a pizza place.
So what happens when you have massive margins, right?
Exactly. Yeah. When you have the right margins, then you can reinvest the money into the right people that are going to help you continue to grow the business. So what does that mean in the agency space? We need to control our biggest cost, which is time. You have to control your time. If you do not estimate the time that's going to take to complete a project, then you're setting yourself up for failure. You're never going to be able to make money. And that's where you have these plateaus where people are just like, I literally cannot break through this ceiling for some reason. And then we got to go back and we say, hey, it's because you're not tracking the hours. You're way undercharging. You're charging $2,000 for a website and it's taking you 150 hours to do it. Like, you're essentially working for $12 an hour.
How do we fix this? Like, how do you fix it with people? Because this is so funny. I mean, I was just on a call, I think yesterday. We recently rolled out a new feature where it makes it super easy to self-serve resell Yext, right? Yext costs like $100 a month if you go straight to Yext. We get a bulk discount, and so we pass it on for $30 a month. And when you go to sign it up for one of your clients, it says like, your cost is $30. We suggest you resell it at somewhere near 100. And, the first X amount of orders came in and I was like looking at the sheet with somebody and we're like, this is great. Like, people are selling Yext. This is great. And it's like, yeah, but you want to see something funny? Look at the column that shows you what they put as the price they want to resell it for. And like 90% of the orders, it was $30. Like, they weren't even choosing to make any money off of it. Most people are just reselling it for the same price they're paying to us to get it. And it's just like, oh my gosh, given the chance, agencies will just shoot themselves in the foot when it comes to making money.
I think this kind of comes down to who we are as people. Like, agents, this is one of the things that I love about working with agency owners. They have the biggest hearts of any people that I've ever worked with in my life. They always want the clients to win. They get more fired up about clients making money than they do. Now, the downside of that is that we undervalue our time. Like, I had to get a contract redone for us with one of our lawyers. And he was like, oh man, I'm going to have to charge you for this. And I'm like, dude, it's okay. And his hourly rate is $350 an hour, and that's cheap. We just got a trademark for our logo and our, Bridge, Connect, and Deliver. We ended up putting in like $12,000. Like, she's charging me for a 15-minute phone call, right? No other agencies have any hesitancy with charging except for, or no other industries have a problem with charging except for agencies.
Dude, our booth at Trafficking Conversions, it's like, if you need storage, here's the cost. And anytime you need to access the storage, it's 1 hour of union wage at
exactly
$100 and something. Like, literally to open a door, we would have to pay $100 every time we want the door open because a union member has to do it.
So we don't charge for some reason. And so here's the easy rule on that, right? Just very simple. If you use this rule, you will make money. Bottom line, unless you do something really, really stupid. Whatever your vendor is charging you, you charge your client 3.5x that amount. So if they're charging you 30, or if you're giving it to them for 30, then you're going to charge your client $105. That can very easily account for any other little time that goes in, because there's going to be little things that pop up. People are going to be talking to each other or whatever. But if you charge 3.5x, you will make money.
So then what do you teach people when it's like, cool, I got that. Now, when someone says, that's insane, I'm not paying that. Or if they say, why are you so much more expensive than them for the same thing? That's the rub, right? Like, is that what you teach people, the answer to that question? Because I feel like until you can confidently answer that question, you're always going to be like, all right, I'll give it to you for $50 or whatever.
I just was teaching this the other day, and one of my clients just came to us, and she just closed an $8,000 a month retainer after learning this. So if you're listening to this, pay attention. The value in what you provide as an agency is not the deliverable. It's just not. When you are selling a service as an agency, you're selling two things. You're selling the outcome and you are selling the team. Most people forget the team aspect of it. So what I tell my agencies, and I don't do a lot of sales coaching, but this is one thing that everybody misses, and I need them to get it. When you're doing a website, for example, for a client, is that website ever finished? No, it's never finished. Okay. So, Mr. Customer, if you have the ability, I recommend that you go out and you hire a designer. That's a person going to be like 60 grand a year. You need to go get a developer in San Diego, bare minimum. You're looking at 80 grand a year. You're going to need to get a project manager to manage all those folks. We're looking at 100,000, and we're looking at a traffic person, easily 90K a year. So all in all, let's just call it 350K. If you have the ability to go out and hire those folks and have that be your in-house team, then please go out and do that. That is what your big competitors are doing, and that's where they're beating you. It's not because they're better than you at the actual like practice of what you do. They just have this team. That's what it takes to be successful. Now, if you don't have that ability to go out and hire that team yourself, then that's where we come in. And we give you this team of people that's going to help you implement all these ideas that we have. We're going to give you the strategy. We're going to help you get it done. Literally, all I do is I press a button. It goes over to my team and we get it all done for you. And just imagine what your business is going to look like in a year. If we just check off one thing a month, we just layer in one new digital marketing tactic every month. In 12 months from now, your business is going to look completely different. Now, that is the value, because when people are positioning themselves as an agency, they typically only talk about, well, you're going to get this number of social media graphics. You're going to get this many landing pages. You're going to get this many videos. That's important. Obviously, like, yes, I do want to know that. But what I really care about is, what is that going to do for me? How much revenue is that going to generate for me? And then the bigger thing is, who's going to do all of it? You, the agency, like that. Are going to do all of it.
I like that way of thinking of it, because you can always, no matter the industry, right? Like, let's say we're talking about, you mentioned a restaurant, or let's say a dental firm, or whatever it may be. If you look at the very top of that industry, there's some mega company, right? Some mega corporation, and that they of course know who that is, right? So it's like Invisalign. Invisalign is awesome, right? Like, yeah, I guarantee you that they have a staff of this type of person, this type of person, this type of person that cost all these things. Like, of course you can't afford that, right? That's why you need a team like us. Like, you're paying for our team to do the work at a fraction of the cost of what it would be to hire them all. So like, I love that idea, because people can relate to that. They could surely acknowledge the fact that, like, the behemoth in my industry, yeah, they probably do have a full-time web developer, right? Sure. Okay. And they probably do have a full-time project manager. Like, you got me, right? Okay, great. We're all on the same page. Like, can you afford that? No, I can't. Okay, great. So now let's talk about, how much of a value you're going to be getting from us at this price. And I like that way of thinking about it.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, like, until the robots replace all of us, human beings still have value. No matter whether you think that individual is worth $50,000 a year, or whether you think that they're worth $250,000 a year, the human being still has value. So it's not really something that a client can ever be like, well, no, I don't need people. It's like, yeah, you do.
There's the flip side. I would say that you do have to get good at just saying, oh, we're not a good fit for each other. Like, I can recall a client where one time we delivered something and he was like going off about the design. And, design is subjective, and and like, we have professional designers. And like, I'll never forget, this guy was like a roofer or something. And he was like, oh, if I had more time, I could do it better than that. And I was just like, all right, well, then we're not on the same reality. Like we're never going to be a good fit together. You should find the time and do it yourself if that's the case. You know what I mean? Because you can't work with everybody, and those types of pitfalls will really cost you time, which, as you pointed out, is really your asset that you need to protect.
Do you know the agency? Oh God, Mike Arcee. He's out of Phoenix.
Yeah. We've had Mike on the show a few times.
Okay, so I love his approach because, you know, it fits his personality too. They're kind of like, here's the line in the sand. Like, you're either with us or you're not. And if you are with us, then we run the show. And if you deviate from it, you're out, right? So you can do that if you get the results.
Yeah.
As long as you get the results and you say, like, it's my way or the highway, then it works. You just kind of have to have the courage to be able to say that.
Exactly. I feel like you need a couple of wins and then it becomes way easier, because that first time when you're at that line and you're like, you need to hold the line, it's so easy to just step back and discount or do whatever you're going to do.
Yeah. Awesome.
Well, before I let you go, let's talk about leadership. How do you teach people how to be better leaders? I mean, I see on the site, you teach all sorts of stuff from like finance, leadership training, operations.
Yeah. So, you know, I believe that your business and specifically your agency is a reflection of you. And I'm speaking from experience. I never went to school for business. I didn't really have a lot of entrepreneurial influences growing up, other than the one random rich uncle that everybody has, or hopefully has. He was crazy, by the way. Great guy. Rest in peace. But I didn't really know what I was doing. Like, your perception of what it takes to be a true business leader, at least in my case, is what you see on TV. And that couldn't be further from the truth. And especially in today's environment, like, we are not hiring the same folks that we were hiring 30 years ago or even 15 years ago. And so that's why I truly believe that in order to be a good leader, you have to be a really, really good person. And mainly like in 4 areas of your life. So you have your physical health, like you have to take care of your health. If your health is out of whack, nothing else matters, in my opinion. Secondly is your mental health. This is something that far too many people in general do not take seriously. You know, my dad died of cancer when I was 3 days before my 27th birthday. It's actually his birthday on Sunday. You know, so that was 14 years ago. I had an absolutely horrendous childhood, very, very abusive childhood. I had all kinds of, you know, let's call them bad things happen to me over the course of my life. And I didn't have tools to be able to manage all those things. And it doesn't go away. It just eventually it'll bubble back up to the surface. And that will come through in your business. You're going to be insecure. You're going to be hot tempered. You're going to be really, really difficult to work with. And there's also physical, you know, things that happen because of that. There's new studies that say that, you know, kids who have a lot of childhood trauma have elevated heart rates for the rest of their life.
Makes sense.
I have an elevated heart rate. I never kind of connected the two. So, you know, that's the second thing, is the mental aspect of it. The third thing is the relationships with people. Something that I also have always struggled with is, you know, you don't have to have a huge circle of people that you really, really care about. My circle is very, very small. But I believe that as human beings, we do need some sort of foundation of family, you know, like whatever your definition of family is, we do need that as human beings to be successful. And then the third part, or the fourth part, is the business side of it. So all 3 of those things ultimately lead into the business. So most entrepreneurs try and solve everything by like working harder. If I make more money, then I'll be able to do this. I'll be able to take my kids on a vacation and they'll care about me again. I'll be able to take my wife to dinner and she'll want to be intimate with me again, or whatever it is. And then I'll feel happier and I'll have less stress. And then I'll finally be able to go to the gym. We try and reverse engineer the ultimate, the success of the other 3 areas by just focusing on business. And it does not work like that. Yeah. So when I talk about leadership, I say, let's go back to the source and let's work on these 4 things. Now, how do you fix those 4 things? It all comes down to habits. The habits that you develop now will determine your success that you see tomorrow. So we need to figure out what are the habits that have led us down the path that we don't want to be on. And then how do we fix those and get back to where we want to go and where we deserve to go. And that's ultimately what I teach in leadership and what I personally believe in leadership, because when I started to focus on the two things that I struggle with, mental health and the relationship part of it, when I started to focus on those two things, everything else started to move in the right direction, and like shockingly fast. Now,
that's amazing. I completely expected an answer to be about like how to structure meetings and this and that and da 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 da. But I love the fact that you're like da 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 da. It's just about like getting straight internally.
What's on with you, man? This is what's going on with you. What's in your head? Those thoughts that are going on in your head. And I don't think that most people would think this, like by looking at me, they wouldn't think that I would respond like that. But it is so much about what goes on up here. And I'm telling you, like, especially if you're a tough guy, kind of like I've always been, get your ass to therapy, because there's so much crap that you have learned along the way that is keeping you from your goals.
No, I thank you for saying that. I mean, I think I feel like the industry, our industry, is being more open about it. And I love it. I love the fact that we're talking about this stuff. I personally believe that like everybody should have a therapist through school. Like it should be like, you know what I mean? Like I honestly feel like who doesn't benefit from being able to safely talk to somebody about what they're feeling? Like, it's just crazy to me that it's taken this long. And, but I'm with you. Like if you've got that tough guy exterior or tough girl exterior or whatever, like the sooner that you can get past it, man, everything in life just sort of gets way easier. And so thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah. Can I tell one quick story about that?
For sure.
So like, my dad died of cancer, and then I was having a really, really hard time. Like I call it like, I was just like in this black hole where like everything made me angry. And my default for dealing with that was fighting. Like I grew up fighting. I was always the scrappiest kid on my soccer team. Like I was the first one in the pile. And as an adult, you can't deal with those things like that, especially in a professional setting. Like you can't go around beating up your customers. It doesn't work. You're going to wind up in jail. And so I just got to a point where like, I could not continue to live like that. And so I was literally like deciding on whether I wanted to kill myself or whether I wanted to try and get help. Those were my two options. And then I decided, you know what? My dad would want me to get help. So then I reached out and I found a therapist. And what I learned is that what I got out of the therapy sessions was just tools to be able to manage these emotions. Mm-hmm. That's all it was. It wasn't like rocket science, but sure. She said, hey, if this happens, what if you tried doing this instead of that? And I'd be like, I never thought of it like that. Yeah. And there's so many little things that you just assume that that's the way, that's the only way, because you have this myopic view and you think that my way, that everybody's had my same experiences and that this is the only way that certain things can be done. And the reality is that there's millions of ways that things can be done. And so that's what therapy did for me, is it just added some more tools to my tool belt so that I can handle these very difficult situations. And as I continue to grow and I continue to go to therapy, I don't go as often as I did back then, but I just feel like it's just giving me more tools. Like when the time is right, I'm being given more tools, and then that helps me get to the next level, and then the next level, and so on and so forth. To me, that is a foundation of leadership.
What's really interesting? I follow this guy Brian on Twitter. Brian Bromley, I think is how you pronounce his last name. He's amazing, and he's always putting out these insane facts and things. And one of the things he put out there was like something like the average human has X amount of thoughts in a day, and like 85% of them are the same thoughts you had yesterday, which blew me away. Right. And I was like, holy smokes. And when you think about it in terms of trauma or things, like if you're carrying around something negative, like 85% of your day is probably going back to that thing in your head, right? And so 100%. If you can get that out of the way, you free up 85% of your day to focus on productive things, your business, your hobbies, whatever it may be, your children. And so, yeah, I mean, I can't encourage people enough to like, whatever you need to do, just get yourself free of that. Do it sooner. The sooner you do it, the better. And I honestly think it should be woven into the structure of our society more. It's just crazy to me that it's not, but
Awesome. Yeah.
That's
if anybody
awesome.
has any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I'll point you in the right direction. My therapist,
Just
I've
going
sent
to
her
ask you. So if
20
people are
people.
listening and they want to learn, well, one, if dudeagency.com, no, .io, if they're interested in the nearshore services, fulfillment, that kind of stuff. But what if people are interested more in the leadership stuff in the mastermind or?
Honestly, so we only offer that, like dudeschool.io, that's free. You can go sign up right now. But we only offer the masterminds to our existing clients. So it's a bonus. We don't even charge for it. Our existing clients just get that. But if you have any questions about this, I'll just give you my email, chris@dudeagency.io. And honestly, like I was saying, is if you have questions about the therapy stuff or any of that, like, kind of mental health things, if you feel comfortable, but you don't know where to go, just ask me, because I've had so many guys over the years reach out to me, and I'm not limiting it to just guys, but I've just found that so many guys have a hard time feeling like they have permission to ask for help. So if anybody wants to ask or shoot me an email, just email me, chris@dudeagency.io.
I love it. Chris, thank you so much for coming on, and I look forward to meeting you in real life next week.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Cool. Thanks everybody for watching. We will see you in the next one.